let's go. Everybody ready?
Yeah.
All right, there we go. Hi, everyone, and welcome at episode 6 already of Head in the Cloud, Heart in the Community. My name is Isidora, and I'm super happy to host you today, together with my friend Holly Lehman, who's on the other side in United States. So please, Holly, say hi and have the honor to introduce our very special guest for today.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining episode 6. I can't even believe we're already here with Head in the Cloud, Heart in the Community. It is such a privilege and honor to have you all here today to introduce my personal friend and mentor, Stephen Rose. He was Mr. OneDrive, now he's Mr. Teams and all the things. So, Stephen, tell us a little bit about yourself, a quick intro, and then we'll jump into everything.
Sure. I've been at Microsoft now for over 12 years. I worked in Windows, I worked in OneDrive, Office, Teams. Absolutely love it. And what's great is through some mentorship and through some great opportunities and being an MVP is what got me my role at Microsoft. Before that, I owned my own company for many years that did IT consulting. So for me, it's been great to come in as someone who was an IT pro, and I guess still is. And get a chance to represent that and really bring some truth and what I felt IT pros needed, which was not to be marketed to, but have great content built for them and answer their questions, has been awesome. And it's really sort of been at the core of what I've done since coming on board.
So I think one of the amazing pieces of your journey and my personal passion is the MVP community. I had the privilege of working with our amazing MVPs for the last few years, and I think that they are one of the most passionate kind sense of people who make up who Microsoft are and like what we're doing. And with a new MVP on the call, Izzy, congratulations to you. That is a huge privilege. I would love for you to tell us, Stephen, a bit from your experience about being an MVP. How do you become an MVP? And talk a little bit, because we are passionate about community. Talk about the passion within the community who make up these amazing humans. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, MVP stands for Microsoft Most Valuable Professional. And there are a wide variety of categories, from developers to IT pros to office specialists, et cetera. But what it is that you've been nominated by someone else in community or someone at Microsoft at being a great community advocate and a great product advocate. And there's a lot of different ways that you can do that. You can do it by being a blogger. You can do it by being someone who goes into our support communities and tech community and answers questions and provides guidance. You could do that by being a great speaker or blogger or podcaster. But they look at all of your achievements and accomplishments over the past year. They're looking for someone who's really all about community, who's super engaged, and who is really seen as a non-Microsoft expert. From there, some folks in the product group, from the MVP group, and usually someone from engineering, they vote on all of the candidates. And if you are lucky enough to be brought in, and there's a limited amount of people who can, so sometimes you have to wait till someone's no longer an MVP, you get brought into the program. And once you're in, what's great is you get regular meetings with product teams and engineering teams. So you get to give your feedback, you get to hear what's coming, you get to play with software early. We have an amazing conference that happens where you get a whole week of sitting with the engineering teams and the product experts and everybody else. But it really is to make you the smartest person in the room and have you be an advocate about the products that you're passionate about to community, and to continue to do that. And each year you have to be renewed. So if you're not, if work got really busy and you weren't able to do enough with community, you might not be, renewed for the next year, but there's always that chance to get back in. But once you're in, if you're pulling your weight, they keep you in there. And it's awesome. It becomes a great, group of people who I'm still friends with people who I met when I was an MVP. We're still go way back, guys like Ed Horley and Michael Niehaus and people like that when I first came on board that I met, who I'm, Paula Januski, folks like that who I'm still friends with to this day. So it's awesome. And to learn more, you can go to the MVP site.
Perfect.
Which you guys, I'm
That's
sure,
wonderful.
will share all that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I heard about that site. So yeah, anyway, Stephen, so for someone like me who's now like not even 24 hours into the Microsoft MVP community. Of course, it's very overwhelming. It's really amazing. It's such a true honor to be selected in such a beautiful program.
Mhm.
So you, with all your experience, if you would have like to give a piece of advice to like really the fresh newbie MVPs like myself and many others, what would that advice be?
I'll give you the same advice that I give anybody who's just started at Microsoft, which is relationships are currency. Knowing people, having a wide net of people that you know is so incredibly important for several reasons. Not only for yourself when you need something that you can go to those folks, but there's nothing more powerful than when someone comes to you and I say, hey, Holly, I'm got asked this question, or I'm dealing with this problem, or I'm trying to figure this out. Do you know anybody? And they go, yeah, absolutely. Let me introduce you. That's huge. And I think to be successful as an MVP and even in a job is being a connector, that you're the person that people go to for answers. And when you don't, you know the right people to get them to, because it's absolutely fine to say, I don't know. But when you go, but I do know who does. So that really becomes the key, is be the connector, make those relationships, go to the meetings. If there's someone that, has something interesting saying, hey, with my name, can I follow up with you later on that? Another fellow MVP, et cetera, and get involved. There are, right now with the pandemic, it's harder. Most of the stuff is virtual, but once they start to do, a tech day or this, et cetera, it's well worth it to go out to those and meet the people and meet the other MVPs. And that's really how you build depth.
I love that advice, because for someone that's more non-technical in a tech community, I used to feel very intimidated because I would be on a call with customers or partners and think, well, I can't answer that question. But then I started to realize, but I know who can. And
Right.
Not everybody has that capability or the little fingers to go find the right folks. And so I think that that's a huge piece of advice. And I appreciate you sharing that with us in this community. But for me, I feel so privileged that I can call you not just a friend, but my mentor. We've had a mentorship for a few years now, and
Yep.
I am so grateful for what you've done for me personally. And so talk a little bit about the power of mentorship, because not only are you a mentor for many people, but you also have your own mentors. And I think that that's a really important dynamic and relationship that you can create. So talk a little bit about that with us. And if someone's out there looking, why should I be a mentor or get a mentor? Tell us a little bit about that.
I think the best thing for you to do when you're looking for a mentor is one of two things. Either A, it's someone who has a job that you would love to have someday. And I'm not talking, when we say like your next job is N+1, I'm talking like N+3,
Yeah.
This is what I aspire to do someday. Or someone who has a set of skills that you would love to do. I want to be a better public speaker. I want to be more technical, whatever that is. And what's amazing is most people, if you go to them and say, hey, I'm really weak here, I'm looking for someone who can be a mentor, who, as I build up my skills, can help me and can get to that point, you'll be amazed how many people will say, yeah, absolutely. I think the worst thing people is they don't ask. And if you don't ask, you don't get, because I think most people would say, absolutely, I'm super happy to do that. The key thing with that is, make sure that your mentor is challenging you, where you're being honest with your mentor. Hey, I'm just not getting this. What do you recommend? They go, check out this video or go do this. And I have one person I'm mentoring in Chicago. She was a store employee and the stores got closed down. She's now, doing our help support, but she really wants to work at Microsoft. And I said to her, hey, you should take a marketing class, because being a great storyteller is important no matter what you do, even if you're a developer or engineer, because if you don't know how to tell the story to get other people excited about what it is that you are trying to get them to buy into, it gets very, very hard to get things done. And she's come back, she's like, wow, it's really great. I'm learning a lot and doing this sort of stuff. And then now we're talking about how do you interview and what sort of questions and how do you answer those. So it's been really, really great to kind of get her to that point and to build that skill set. And, interviewing is something you just have to do a ton of times, and you're going to fail at it and you're going to get better, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the types of things I think when you're looking at a mentor, how to sort of figure out that best part. It's just not somebody who's done well, but somebody going, that's my dream job, or that person can get on stage and do this, or they can sit down and write code in an hour that I could never do. And that's what I'd love to do. So what can I do to be better from that? And that's really, I think, what makes up a great mentor. And a great mentoree is someone who is puts their ego aside and all of that and just says, I'm here to learn, and what I don't know, I don't know. And what do you recommend, from books to other people to relationships, things like that?
But what I hear you saying are two things that I really want to like dig into. One, I hear you saying, don't be afraid to ask. So the one thing Izzy and I always joke about when we're looking for a guest, I'm like, the worst thing they can say is no, and then that's okay. So I hear you saying, don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah.
And the other is, as the person looking for the mentor, you have to put in some work.
Yeah.
Right? You have to be willing to not just put your ego aside and say, will you mentor me? But you also have to be willing to dig in a bit and do some things, you know, on the side. And if it's reading that book or taking the class or asking for the advice and then actually trying it, because that's the benefit of that relationship, I would say. Right, Izzy?
Yeah. Beautifully summarized, Holly. So, Stephen, thanks for that. Definitely gives a lot of insights. So, if anybody's now watching or listening or joining our show, and they're thinking like, hey, I would like to have a mentor myself, or maybe I want to be a mentee or a mentor, are there any official programs that you would recommend, like where they could go to?
I think there are tons. I mean, from Microsoft has programs, there are tons of third-party. Toastmasters for public speaking is a great place to go do a lot of that. I think it really is, where's that area of your life that you want to work on, and then find a group that deals with that. That could be a local user group, and there's someone there that you really look up to. Could be a business group, speaking group. It doesn't necessarily have to be a group of mentors that are there. Watch some TED Talks and look at some of those folks and things like that. So I think it's really sort of seeking out where your passion is and where your weaknesses are, and then finding some folks and pick 4 people that you feel really best exemplify that skill that you want, and reach out to them and say, look, I'm at this place in my life and I'm looking to make some changes and do this. And I've watched you, or I've seen you, or I've met you, and you have this skill that I'm dying to get. Could you, or do you know of someone who can help me and mentor me in that? Or go to Toastmasters and figure out who is that great speaker and say, hey, I love what you're doing. Would you be willing to work with me or mentor me? Or can I buy a coffee or a drink or whatever it is? But most people will probably say, sure, I have limited time, but as long as you're not wasting their time. And the big thing with a mentor is it's fine to make mistakes. Don't just keep making the same mistakes. That's when somebody gets frustrated, because you're not listening and you're not growing. So
exactly, learn and grow, indeed.
Yeah. But I think also what's really important on this one specific topic, and Izzy, this was your idea, and it shows your heart and your passion for community. I know that you recently lost someone that you're dear friends with, and I want to talk about Chris and the impact that he had as a mentor, because there was a Teams channel that was set up, and I was reading, and what really grew my heart, I knew Chris, not like you did, but we worked on the same team, and how many people said, he was my mentor and he helped me learn X, and I'm still doing it because of him. So I don't know, I would love to hear your thoughts and just give him a little bit of spotlight on the show today.
Yeah, Chris Jackson was a very close friend of mine. It's a really rough loss to lose him. I've known him for 12 years. I went to Tech Ed Barcelona 3 weeks into my job, and that's when I first met Chris, and we have become great friends ever since. The thing about Chris Jackson, and I remember chatting with someone, and they said, man, he's really egotistical. He kind of hangs out, with you and Mark Rusinovich and all these other guys, and he drives a Ferrari, and he's always talking about it. And I'm like, you don't get Chris then. Here's the thing about Chris. It took Chris like 7-8 years to finish college, because he would have to drop out, get money, and then re-enroll. It took him forever. He actually had a psychology degree, and then when he went for his computer science degree, it really took him a long time to get it. Chris had nothing. Couch surfed while he was trying to get his degree. Chris also made it a point in 2 things. Number one, he would set a goal for himself, like getting the Ferrari. That was his goal, but he wanted to make sure his family didn't lack for anything. And that was his thing, is how can I budget to it and work towards it and get it? For him, it wasn't showing off. It's just, I set this goal and I did it, and you can do it too. And with the people that he hung out with, like myself and Jeffrey Snover and Mark Rusinovich and Aaron Margosis and Niehaus and all of us, he surrounded himself with people who had skill sets that he wanted to get. We were in Las Vegas, walking down Las Vegas Boulevard, and he turned to me and he goes, I have so much respect for you because you can stand in front of an audience of people and you're so passionate that they want to do whatever you tell them to go do. If they're like, go try this and go do it, you get 1,200 people in a room who go do that. And I don't know how you do that. And it was, anyways, it was great to kind of share some of that with him and how I thought about it, how I did. And I learned a ton from Chris. He was constantly reading books and bettering himself and surrounding himself with people that he could learn from, and was happy to share that back. And I think the great thing about Chris, and this is something I strive to do and I don't do well enough and other people do, is that when you had a conversation with Chris, you had his 100% full undivided attention. Nothing would sidetrack him. He was talking to you. He was in the moment. He could be surrounded by 1,000 people at a conference. He was still in the moment with you and gave you 100%. And I think that's what people really remember about him, was that he made everybody feel special and important because he was there with you. And it's a huge loss losing him, and it's something I still have not fully dealt with yet, but it's great. And there are several things we're working on. We're working on a scholarship fund in his name for people to get a computer science degree, which he studied at, and some other things. So, and I'd love to talk about that on a later show and as that moves forward. But that's really what I learned from him. And I was a mentor to him, and he was a great friend and mentor to me. So we really helped each other.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, Holly. I also believe you also wanted to talk. So when we go from mentorship, of course, it's also part of a career and a career in tech. Would you like, to talk about it also?
Yeah, if we have a really wide audience that listens to this call. And so we have people that are new in tech. We have people that are new to being MVPs. We have people that are looking for a new career. So I would say two things. Let's talk about what, if you would say there's one piece of advice for someone listening as they get into their tech career, what would you share with them?
Wow. It's hard to get that down to just one piece of advice. I think the most important thing is to stay current, and that's a big job. People say, what do you do each morning before your first call? I'm going through a bunch of different blogs. I want to know. I have Google searches that go out and bring me, specially curated emails on these are topics that I'm following and what are people doing, because it's all of that. It's hard to stay current, and I think that's the most important thing. I remember. I'm on the board for, several colleges and universities. I used to be on the ITT Tech board and things like that. And I remember 5 years ago saying, if you guys aren't teaching about the cloud now, you can't. You guys are still talking about servers and you guys are still talking about this. You've got to be talking about the cloud. We're all going to be moving to the cloud in the next 5 years. And it's going to be not building desktop apps, but cloud apps and how you connect and how you do this. And it's understanding where are we at now, where are we going, and where's that next technology? And only by staying current, by understanding what are the pain points that current companies are having today, that other IT pros are having today, and what are the solutions that are coming, and where are those gaps, and knowing and watching as those products and services from all the different vendors and manufacturers come in, and how that's going to change the way that we work. The pandemic certainly sped things up, but the idea that, hey, it's great to have people using Teams and Zoom and Slack, but what we really realized was we needed software that talked about how well were they working in it? Were they doing other work? Were they multitasking? Were they being engaged? Were they following up? How many hours were we seeing email hours go down as chat went up and started to replace that? And understanding we have for the first time in history, 4 generations of workers from baby boomers.
I never thought about that.
We do. I mean, we have baby boomers and millennials and Gen X and Gen Y. We have one group of people who sees email on the desktop as the only way to do things, and another group at the far end that says, this is no different than a laptop. This is just a way to get to my stuff in the cloud, and I'm going to do everything through chat because that's immediate, and I don't have to wait for an answer and follow up. That email is how you tell people there's donuts in the break room.
Yeah.
And how do you, as someone who works in a company, start to get people to change how they work and think and work together? So I think understanding that and thinking about that and looking at those trends is going to make you a great MVP. It's going to make you a better IT pro and just a better person as you start to take a look at that. So I don't think that there's a single thing, but I think it's really understanding how things are changing in those trends. We're moving into the next industrial revolution, or we're in it, according to some people. How is that going to adjust, and how will AI affect them? What kind of security concerns? Everything's cause and effect, so it's really looking at that. I know that that's a long answer for a short question. I apologize, but
we love
No, it's great
long
answer.
answers. And speaking of long answers, as we are nearing close to the end of the show, I mean, we of course would love to hear a lot more long answers of you. So you do run your own podcast.
Yes.
Where I'm sure you give lots of long answers and we can hear a lot more about you. So I would love to touch on that topic about your podcast, how you started it, what you're doing. Like, please enlighten us.
Yeah, I'll keep this a short answer. How's that? Folks can go out to aka.ms/teams-remote work. We do a Teams webcast. We do 2 a month. I'm excited that we have Jeff Teeper as our guest this week, which will be great to have him on. But we cover a variety of topics from security to how to build your first Power Platform app for those who have never done it, understanding citizen developers. We kind of go through all the different aspects of Teams. We're also a 30-minute cast, so I can't get that long-winded, but we have some great guests, demos, unboxings. We're just finishing season 2, and we'll go to season 3 in January, so we encourage folks to check it out. But it's a great way to stay current and up on what's going on and what's new.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So if you're joining the show, make sure you follow Steven. And then just to dig a little bit back into the history, how did you start your podcast? Like, what was driving you from the inside to go and get it done?
For the webcast, it was absolutely the pandemic hit, and there were a lot of people saying, hey, how do I work remotely and how do I use Teams? And we thought, we have great stuff for CEOs, like, hey, how you look at a company and do that. And Jeremy Chapman does a phenomenal job with mechanics. But we were really looking at kind of this middle on why for IT pros, and what does this do, and why is this important, and why should I look at it? And we felt it was a great space. And we've turned that into a webcast that we do to answer that question and to drive to the great stuff that's being created above and below that. So it's done really well. We have great readership. If folks want to learn more about it, they can go to the site, or they can, of course, follow me on Twitter at Stephen L. Rose, which I'm happy to answer questions and chat with people and all that other good stuff. And that's Stephen with a PH.
Well, this was a great episode, Stephen. I think you are so just capturing and positive, and you really humanize tech in a way that makes it fun and enjoyable. And that's why I gravitated to you. I watched one of your presentations and sessions, and I thought, I want to do that one day. So thank you so much for joining us on this episode. I had a lot of fun. I always do. And you are definitely motivating and part of humans in IT that we all look to when we think about Microsoft. So thank you for everything you're doing for us and the community.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's very nice. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. It was a true pleasure to listen as well as to watch. Also, your background. I love how we're all aligned on outfits. We didn't even discuss, but
Just sort of felt like the day. So it worked well. Yeah, I should have worn my tiara. I didn't. I'm feeling a little left out this morning, so I won't next time. But hey, just remember, you're awesome. Keep that shit up.
Yes. Yes.
That's perfect.
So before you end, we would love for you, Stephen, to ask if you can join us in like showing the heart that we have.
How's that?
Wonderful. The hearts in the community. Awesome.